Yeah, I'm just hearing you talk about the other Aussies and how they need to get their sleep.
Well, feel
They're
free to
more
interrupt me at any point, okay?
they're more resilient than I guess you are one of them.
I am. I am. My parents may disagree with you now that I've been away for so long, but yeah, still got that thick Aussie blood. We're tough. So, guys, we'll get the show on the road. Given that Carl is here today, and just brief intro, we've got this 5-day workshop series, and throughout the 5 days, each lesson is going to be building on one to the next to the next. So, if you can be here across the 5 days, we'd love to see you. It's a quick 30 minutes on our lunch hour. I know we've got people from all around the world, so it's a different time of day for other people, but we'd love to see you back every day. If for some reason you can't make one, that's not a reason not to show up to the other ones, and we'll make sure you get the resources that you missed out on those lessons. So excited to share the next 5 days with you guys. If you have any questions outside of these 30 minutes, maybe you don't get your question answered on the call, you can see our contact info up on the screen. So feel free to shoot either of us an email after we finish up the presentation. Now, just to run through what to expect for the next 5 days. Today, our topic is self-reflection and priorities. So we're going to ask you to look back and look inside a little bit on day one. Day two, we're going to get a little uncomfortable and ask you guys to look at your weaknesses and learn to embrace them. Day three, Carl is going to be talking about reverse engineering, which if you're a CCP coach and inside the coaching certificate program, you've definitely heard that term applied to fitness goals before. Now we're going to talk more about your coaching career. Thursday, we're going to look at manage your day and really how to set yourself up to be successful and hit all your big ticket items. And then on Friday, we're going to talk about actioning and moving forward. So Carl, are you ready to take it with self-reflection and priority?
Yeah, let's do it. Can you hear me okay, Georgia?
I can indeed.
Awesome. Guys, thanks a lot for joining. I know this is a little bit different than what we usually do, so we're not really talking about program design and energy systems today. But I think the timing is just really good. You know, when the team and I and Georgia, we were talking about, you know, what can we do to give value to our coaches and even people that are outside of our ecosystem here at OPEX during this just weird time, right? I think people taking a step back and looking at, you know, why do you guys do this thing? You know, why do you guys coach? To really take a step back and think about what is 2021 going to look like for you guys next year. And it comes up all the time, like in CCP cohorts, in live events, everything. Like everyone always talks about habits and building great efficiencies, right? But I think most of the time, we just skip that self-reflection part where it's like we don't actually look at what we're doing and why we do it. So that's what this next week is intended to solve or fix or just give you guys more insights into. So the goal of this week, outside of, you know, what George already walked through, is to create sustainable habits, but to give you a framework to do it, right? Like to actually give you a framework of start here, then go here, and then you end there, right? So we just want to build that framework. So we want to use these calls as an opportunity for conversations, questions. 30 minutes is going to go by extremely quick, or at this point, 24 minutes is going to go by extremely quick. So I'm going to try to be as quick as possible. And likely I'll go over and, I won't go over on content, but we'll go over and we'll spend some extra time here just in case you guys want to kind of jam a little bit after the 30 minutes. We want you guys to obviously be set up. You guys probably got, Georgia, they got emails before this with like the worksheets and all that. So we want to set you guys up every day to, you know, get off this call and to actually do something, to actually action on this stuff. So the next 5 days aren't intended to be like, you know, let's talk, let's look at these slides, let's all feel good. It's like, hey, let's do that for sure, but then go do something about it, right? So this is more of a workshop than a webinar series, if that makes sense. And we want you guys to be confident in what you're doing moving forward and what you're doing moving into 2021, right? We want you guys to be confident in why you're doing what you're doing and if you're accomplishing those things on a day-to-day basis. And I see some faces on here that have obviously been through CCP. I see a couple faces on here that are in Accelerator right now, our business accelerator program, or just finished that thing up. And you guys will hear some of the same things, especially today when we start looking at like, what is your purpose? What are your priorities and what are your values? So let's roll right into it. So we have to understand what our purpose is, right? And this is just such, it's a big question, right? And we're asking you guys to get off of this call, look at that worksheet, and write down what your life purpose is. That's a really, really big deal. But be okay that your purpose absolutely evolves. It has to evolve, right? So just to give you, I think it's fair for me to kind of, it's only fair for me to give you insights into what I think my purpose is and how my purpose has evolved over the past, 15 or 20 years. So let's just look at, I'll go through like iterations of what my purpose was or what I thought my purpose was. And I think that'll be helpful. And I'm going to keep this to my adult life. So I'm not going to talk about like 10 or 11-year-old Carl. So let's say from the point of me being 18 to now I'm 34 years old. So me as an 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kid, my purpose was to be the best athlete that I could possibly be, right? I wanted to be a great football player. That was my purpose in life. I was like, I'm going to use this thing to get me an education. I'm going to use this thing to make a lot of money, and I'm going to do this thing forever. Reality hit me in the face really quickly after college, right? Played a little bit after college and realized, maybe I'm not good enough to do this thing forever. So maybe my purpose needs to shift. So it did. So it's kind of bipolar, right? It's like I'm in college, I'm playing football, I play pro football for a couple of years, realize I'm not good enough to actually do that for the rest of my life, or let's say my athletic life. And my purpose shifts. I go into the military, right? So my purpose at that point was to be the best soldier that I could be. And because of what I did in the military, it was specifically to make sure that my brothers and sisters in the military made it home safely. So that was my sole purpose for 6 years, right? It was like, I need to take care of other people. I need to lead other soldiers and take care of them. That was it. That was my life's calling. Then I stopped doing that. So my purpose then again shifted. Then my purpose shifted into being the best coach / gym owner that I can possibly be, and to impact as many lives as possible through the fitness medium, right? So I wanted to be a leader in my local community. I wanted to impact as many lives as I possibly could. So it's obvious, right? Like my purpose had to shift based on what I was doing in life, right? Especially as a profession. So when I look back at those and I'm like, what are the common themes there? What are the common themes of those three purposes? And it was leadership, right? I always wanted to be a great leader. That was it. In football, I wanted to lead other men, right? To do something at that point I thought was the most important thing in the world, right? To win football games. Sounds silly me saying that now, but that was my purpose, right? I wanted to lead other men. Okay. Then my purpose shifted and I got in the military. And my purpose was to lead other soldiers, right? Lead other soldiers and get them home safely. That was my sole purpose. Okay. Now, then I'm a gym owner, right? And I'm a coach. So now I'm trying to impact as many people as possible through that medium, the medium of fitness. Okay. Leadership was like the common theme. Now, when I look at what my purpose is today, it's to impact as many lives as I can and as we can through the same medium of fitness. It's being the best father, husband, leader at OPEX, right? Like I want to be a really good example for my kids, my wife, my staff. I want to be dependable, right? And to be a great leader, I'm like, I have to always put myself behind others or put others in front of myself. So that purpose was always there, right? Throughout everything I did in my adult life, that purpose was always constant. So when I reflect and I'm like, okay, what am I doing? What am I here for? It's it's to be the best leader that I can possibly be. That's it. Right. So what gets me up in the morning? That's it. That's my purpose, right? Like what I do on a daily basis, I'm always looking back at my purpose and I'm like, is this thing getting me closer or further away from what I think my purpose is? And that's just such a freeing feeling. So as you guys reflect on this and you guys go home and you're like, okay, what is my purpose? That's super fucking uncomfortable, really uncomfortable to really ask yourself, what is my purpose? Why am I here? And what's more uncomfortable, especially for you guys on this call, is that your purpose might not be fitness related. It might not be. That's reality, right? Your purpose might not be fitness related. That doesn't mean that you can't use fitness as a medium to get closer to your purpose. It doesn't mean that by any means, but your purpose might not be directly related to fitness. So when you guys get off and you start to think about that, don't have that biasness in your brain where you're like, okay, OPEX told me to go home and think about my purpose. It has to be around fitness. Don't think that at all, because it might not be, right? It's likely that it's not, right? You probably have a much bigger purpose, but you guys can use fitness as that medium or that tool to get you closer to that purpose. Purpose always starts with passion. It has to, right? If you're not passionate about something, it's definitely not your purpose, right? So, you know, we talk to people all the time and they're like, hey, I want to make a lot of money doing this coaching thing. It's like, are you passionate about making a lot of money? And the answer is usually no, but I'm passionate about something that making more money will allow me to do. And it's like, okay, that's a fair answer, right? So you need to make money to get closer to your passion, right? So think about what you're passionate about and reflect on that, right? Like, is that thing what I'm doing right now? Am I doing what I'm passionate about? It's really, really important to think about. And a lot of people that we see get out of the coaching profession, they're just not passionate about it. And there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to stay in this thing for the rest of your lives. But if you're passionate about it, and we can go down that rabbit hole, if you're passionate about it, you should set yourself up to be able to stay in this thing for the rest of your life. So when we start to look at what other people are doing, right? Like we start to look outside of ourselves. That's where it starts to get dangerous, right? And it's like, I'm all for having great mentors. I've always had awesome mentors in my life, and I still do now, right? It's awesome to look at people in the field that you're passionate about and what they're doing and try to mimic that person, right? But think about forging your own path as well, right? So their purpose is probably different than your purpose. Your mentor's purpose, the person that's doing really well in this field that you're passionate about, their purpose is probably different than yours. And I think that's important to bring up just so you guys don't look at what other people are doing and you have to model yourself after what they're doing. Right? Because purpose, this whole thing needs to start with, what are you passionate about? Then think about, what is your purpose? Why are you here? Why are you doing what you're doing on a daily basis? And most likely, guys, that's going to be different than every other person in the world. It's very unlikely that you guys are going to be 100% aligned across the board. And just as human beings, guys, we're designed to be purpose-seeking individuals, right? We're not designed to be, unless we're like sociopaths and stuff like that, we're not designed to put ourselves first and to step on people to be successful and all of that. Some of us do it, right? But then we start to reflect and we regret it, right? So just as human beings, we're always searching for purpose. And once we find purpose, guys, it opens it up, right? Because we're like single organisms, right? Once we feel good in one area, it's going to spill over to all areas of life. I'm sure you guys can think about someone that's just like an angry person, right? They're an angry person, so they're probably a terrible spouse, right? Like they're probably a terrible friend. You don't like being around them. You're like, that person just brings me down because they're always angry, right? They're just an angry person, right? So if you guys can start thinking about life in more of an aspect of like, if I feel like I'm fulfilled, I'm happy, I found my purpose, I'm moving forward, that's going to spill over into every single thing that we do. So coming out of this, we need to, after we jump off this call, so whether that's tonight or tomorrow for whoever's on this call in Australia right now, really think about what your purpose is. Go through the worksheet that the team sent you out earlier today and reflect on it. Think about it, right? It might take you days. It might take you weeks. It might take you months to really figure this thing out and to be good with it. But the thing will evolve, right? So don't think like what you write on that piece of paper is it and it needs to stay that forever. Because I can guarantee you one thing, it will not be that one thing forever. It won't. But you guys need to align on what is that thing right now in this moment. Because remember, the reason why we're on this call is to build great habits, right? So everything that we do on a daily basis needs to be positioned off of something. And I'll argue that that thing needs to be positioned off of your purpose and why you're here and what you're doing. So looking at our next piece being priorities, right? Think of your priorities being, where do you guys spend most of your time? Look at your schedule. Like if you're like a Google Calendar person, pull up your Google Calendar. What fills those cells? Those are your priorities, right? Don't even think about what is most important to me. Don't think about any of that stuff, right? So we sent you this awesome worksheet. Go through that worksheet, answer those questions. And as you go through those questions, you'll start to see a theme. You'll start to see the same things coming up over and over and over. And then we're going to ask you to essentially prioritize your priorities, right? It's like, these are your priorities, write those things down. What are the common themes inside of the questions that we've asked you? But it's important to understand that there's a huge, huge difference between priorities and values. So priorities, like I said, it's what you do. It's where you spend most of your time. So if I were to rank my 3 top priorities right now, priority number 1 would be OPEX Fitness. That would be priority number 1. Priority number 2 would be my family, right? So priority number 1 is OPEX. Number 2 is my family. And number 3 would be working out, like exercising, right? So those are my 3 priorities. And you guys can see Brandon's figuring his out on the screen right now. Those are my 3 top priorities. But when we start to look at what are my values, right? My values are a lot different than my priorities. My priorities are what I do on a day-to-day basis and what fills the cells in my Google Calendar. And my values are what's more important to me. So if I were to take those 3 things, I would actually say my family is definitely more important than OPEX and fitness. Fitness is more important than OPEX. And OPEX would fall 3rd on that list. So you can start to see my priorities and my values are different, right? And that's okay. I remember in the old life coaching courses, we used to talk about this and it would blow people's minds. They'd be like, whoa, wait, what? No, I prioritize my family. And it's like, well, do you? Like, let me see your calendar. How many hours a day do you spend with your family versus at work? And most people were like, well, I'm at the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning and I leave at 8 p.m. And I'm like, ooh, you definitely prioritize your gym for your family. And that's uncomfortable to people at first until they realize what the definition of a priority versus a value really is. Okay. So understand those 2 things and be okay with those 2 things being different. I don't love OPEX more than my family, but I spend more time at OPEX or doing OPEX things than I do with my family. That's the reality. Man, a little bit different now. COVID, we're all home. So my family's all in the background. You probably saw my kid just walk behind me a couple minutes ago. But yeah, that's important to realize. So use that priorities and purpose worksheet and go through that practice. Look at what your priorities are. Are your priorities aligned with your purpose, right? So if your purpose is something like impacting the world through fitness, and you don't spend any of your time on a daily basis getting you closer to that, reevaluate. Is your purpose off, or are your priorities off? So before we can get to a point where we can talk about, hey, what are you guys doing on a daily basis? What's in your Google calendars? We need to understand these two things. We need to understand your purpose, and we need to understand your priorities. And we have to get those things aligned. Those things have to be aligned before we go any further. And this is a subject that I'm extremely passionate about, guys, because I fucked it up for a long, long time, right? Like, I would just like fill my time with a bunch of things that I thought were important. I would fill my time with things that I thought I needed to be doing. And I wasn't practicing what I was preaching. I wasn't actually taking a step back and looking at, okay, what's actually important to me? I didn't take time to take a step back and look at my calendar and say, are these things in my calendar getting me closer to what I said was important to me? And when I went through that practice a couple years ago, literally a couple years ago, I remember me and Megan Sweet were having coffee last weekend, and she asked me that question. She's like, so when did you feel like you had that shift? And I was like, Meg, it was actually like 2 years ago. It wasn't like 10 years ago. Right. I was like, I had that shift, and I was like, man, I'm doing things wrong. Right. And then we also talked about, we'll reflect back in 5 years, and we'll say the same thing. We were doing things wrong because we evolve as human beings. Right. But the difference between now and then, now my days feel seamless. My days feel great. I feel really good at the end of every single day. Right. And we'll talk about it as we get into like building your perfect day. But our perfect day is getting the things done that are most important to get done, not getting everything done that we could possibly get done. Right. So that's really important for all of us to understand. And it's important for us to understand that we only have so large of an attention span, and we can only get so much things done effectively on a day-to-day basis. So we're actually going to propose that you guys look at 3 to 5 things that you really need to get done on a daily basis, and set up a daily sync with yourself where you start to look at every single day, these 3 to 5 things that I want to get done today, do they align with my purpose? Do they align with my monthly goals, my weekly goals, the goals that I need to hit today? So we'll get into all that stuff, but that's where we're leading. But we have to start with purpose and priorities. Georgia, I think I didn't leave too much time for questions, but I'll end it there.
Okay. And I think something that'd be great to do before we do get into some questions, Carl, is just talk a little bit about that purpose and priorities worksheet and how coaches should fill that out. So are you cool to hit on that?
Yeah, for sure. I don't have it in front of me, but yeah, just go.
Do you want me to pull it up so you can
No.
it?
Yeah, no, I think I'm good. Yeah. So on the purpose, we just literally ask you the question. We don't give you any direction there. We just ask what is your purpose. I hope the last 20 minutes helps a little bit. But yeah, just reflect on that and really identify what your purpose is. Like, there's no silver bullet, or there's no secret for a human being to figure out what their purpose is outside of being clear with what their passions are and where those passions sit. So fill that out. And then when you go into the priorities worksheet section, we just ask you a series of questions, right? Answer those questions as honestly as possible. Put the first things that come to your mind. And then when you get to the end, reflect back on the questions that you answered and just fill out the top 5 priorities that come to mind, or the things that are repeated in those initial questions.
And I will say, I can see that the link that was available, people can go in there and type. So someone has filled out all of the answers blob. But if you guys download that sheet, like download the PDF and save it to your computer, you'll be able to fill it out for yourself. So make sure you're downloading it and saving it, and then using that sheet yourself, whether you type in like in a PDF in Adobe, or you actually print it out old school and handwrite it. So guys, because we have a few minutes, and because we're all on camera with speakers, I think it'd be way more fun to actually pull people in to ask questions versus have me read them off. So Are there any questions that have come in the chat box yet around the discussion for today? And guys, you can take a second to fill them in. Any questions, guys? And feel free just to turn your mic on and ask them if you want to.
I have a quick question. This is Kenny.
Kenny, how's it going, buddy?
Going well, sir. Going very well. Very busy, helping the world get fitter and fitter.
Love it.
So just a quick question on the sheets. Where do you spend most of your time? All right, that I don't expect the answer. Where do you focus the most? How are those two questions different?
Yeah, so just think about question number one being like, where are you at physically most of the day, right? Mm-hmm. Question number two, you might be at, I think you have a garage gym, right? That's where you run.
That's correct. Yep. Yes,
yeah.
sir.
So you might be in the garage gym most of your day, Kenny, but you don't feel focused in there, or you may not feel focused in there. You may feel more focused inside of that door in an office, right? Maybe that's where you write your programs. Maybe that's where you do consults. I'm just guessing, right? So those would actually, for most people, those places would be different.
I got you. So they're physical. Where do you focus most? As opposed to, like, I focus on my biceps, for example, just being facetious here, but that type of thing. I got you.
Exactly.
I focus in a coffee shop. I focus in my bedroom. I focus where? Got you. Thank you.
Exactly. Yep.
Guys, anyone else, feel free to jump.
Henrik, I appreciate that, but I more appreciate your previous remark. I appreciate that, man. Thanks.
I'm going to jump in here. My name's Chris. Utilizing this kind of purpose of what you want done and your priorities for the day, do you utilize those same types of questions with your clients?
Yes, great question. We do. Yeah. So you guys that have been through CCP, those are the exact questions that we want you asking your clients to really uncover what their priorities really are. Because Chris, if I were to ask you that question with no context, let's just say we're in a consultation, you might say what I said earlier, like my priorities are my family, my priorities are this or that. But then when I really start to dig in and ask more specific questions, we can unpack and uncover where you do spend more of your time and what that calendar looks like. So yeah, we definitely use these. We tell our coaches to use these questions with their clients. Great question.
Hello, it's Giselle.
Hey, Giselle.
So how you can make the difference between the purpose and the objective of a person, of a client, because it's pretty similar when you get to the point like, okay, this is the thing that I need to do and this is the thing that I'm doing to get there. So how you can make the difference?
Do you mean purpose and specific goals?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say purpose. Let's look at purpose as being like the overarching thing, right? So like, let's say Giselle, your purpose was, let's just keep using the impact people, right? You wanted to impact as many people as possible, but one of your goals personally is to bench press 10 pounds more. Right? It's like that goal doesn't necessarily have to increase that purpose or move you closer to that purpose. So when you're dealing with this on a client level, right, it is really important to understand what their priorities and purpose are, right? Because now we can challenge goals, right? And I'm not saying that's what we want to do with all of our clients, but sometimes it's beneficial, right? If you get a client that says, hey, I need to lose 5% body fat, and you as their coach, you're like, I don't think that's the best way forward for you right now. You're thinking that in your head. Because you understand what their priorities are and what their purpose is, you can use those things. You can use that knowledge to make them understand what you understand, right? Where it's like losing 5% body fat isn't going to lead to your purpose right now. Losing
Okay.
5% body fat, that's not where we need to spend our time and energy right now. We need to spend it here based on what you told me your bigger goals are, what your purpose is, and what your priorities are, and what you value.
Okay. Cool.
I saw Brandon had a question in the chat box. I wonder if Brandon will jump on and ask that question. You're so good for the chat box banter. I want to hear your voice, Brandon.
Yeah. So I guess you're revisiting your priorities every week when you put in your calendar. Of course, you know, you're zooming out. How often do you formally revisit the drill for yourself? Do you do it when you just feel as though, you know, when you're putting your things in throughout the week, that it's not, you have this feeling that you're not quite doing the right things. You know, I don't know if that makes sense, you know, where you feel as though you're like kind of lost. But how often do you zoom out and just revisit this entire priority drill?
Yeah, I think Brandon, first guys, Brandon makes the most ridiculous memes you'll ever see. So hopefully we get one by
God, I love OPEX memes.
Yeah, so Brandon, I think what you're asking is how often do you take a step back and revisit your purpose, right? Okay. Yeah, man, I think that's more of a feeling, like you were saying, right? Like I wouldn't put it on my calendar for every, every 3 months, go back and really look at what my purpose is, why I'm here. I think we just feel that as humans, right? Like we start to feel a lack of fulfillment. We start to think, are we doing the thing that we want to do for the rest of our lives? And when we have that feeling, that's always a great time to take a step back and revisit what that purpose is. I can tell you, man, I've had that feeling a couple times in my life, like I laid out earlier, and I didn't do it, right? I didn't take that step back each one of those times and like revisit and think. I was just like, let me just fill my time and let me figure out what the next thing I'm going to do is, right? So hindsight, right? Hindsight would be to, you know, when you start to have those feelings and you feel like you're misplaced or you're out of place, take that as an opportunity to take a step back and think about those things.
Makes sense.
Sorry, I was distracted by Tanita. I saw a naked man come in, and I was like, what's happening? What's happening over there? All good. We're all friends here.
COVID work-related accident. What occupational hazard? Occupational hazard of COVID.
No, great question though, Brandon. Yeah, that's a good question.
Hi.
Was that Jorge?
Yeah. How often do you ask these questions to your clients? Because I think it's different when you ask to yourself than to your clients. How often do you do it?
Yeah, I would say to start, for sure, right? To start in that onboarding process, initial consultation, that whole deal. And then when you, again, I'll say it again, right? It's a feeling through conversation. When your clients start to feel lost and misaligned, and you feel like what you're giving them in exercise, behavior, nutrition just isn't filling that void, it's just having that conversation and revisiting those things. And maybe it's just you reminding them what their purpose is, you reminding them what their priorities are, right? Because guys, some people, like, life is just, it's like that sometimes, right? Like people go through life and, you know, we say it all the time, like, oh, it's already the end of the year. How did we get here, right? Oh man, we're 10 months in COVID. How did we get here, right? We just, a lot of people don't take a step back and think and reflect on those things. So as coaches, we can be that person. We can be that sounding board to remind people what those things are. And if there's misalignment when we remind them, then it's another opportunity to dig a little bit deeper into to revisit.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, for sure.
Hi, Mitchell here. I'm going to try to format this question in a not so spacey like way, but so you've been coaching for quite a long time. I don't know how many years you've got underneath your belt, but as you have like kind of changed your purpose or maybe walked through these things with your clientele, do you ever like kind of discuss how you're changing your purpose or how maybe that kind of shapes the way that you program, the way that you have conversations with them? Is that like, how do you kind of weave through that experience with a client base and like maybe a smaller client base or a bigger client base, and just kind of like, how do you kind of walk through that?
Yeah, for sure, man. We were, when I was solely coaching and owning gyms and that whole deal, our business was based off of a lot of my experiences, right? Like our business, like our purpose as a business, our mission as a business, all of those things. So I was always vulnerable, might not be the right word, right? But I was always very upfront with my experiences, my failures, right? Not so much my successes, right? But my experiences and my failures, and why we're doing what we're doing and that whole thing, because that always shaped what we were doing in my businesses. But I don't think that, we should have it on the docket where it's like, okay, initial consultation, part C, now we talk about ourselves and our purpose and our experience. I think there has to be a right time,
Sure.
a right place and time to dig into that stuff with your clients.
Sure.
But yeah, man, it shows humility, right? For us to be able to talk to our clients like that. And I'm not going to lie, right? I was like, okay, there's probably going to be a couple hundred people on this call. Should I talk about my experiences and what my purpose is? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely I should, right? Because, a lot of you guys, right? Or a lot of your clients could actually learn from you just explaining what your purpose is, right? You can motivate your clients to really understand, or to want to understand what they're passionate about by just hearing you talk to them, right? So it's like, I think the more opportunities that we have to do those things and to have those types of conversations, the better. And we talk about it all the time, not because it's a sexy thing to talk about it, but we always talk about building great relationships with your clients, right? To build really good relationships with your clients, you have to have that vulnerability, that humility. You have to be honest, right? You have to be okay with, telling them what mistakes you've made in the past, so on and so forth. So just to answer that quickly, yeah, I think you do need to talk about those things with your clients when it's the right place and right time.
Cheers.
Arnell, you want to jump in and ask your question?
Can you hear me? Carl, I'm just curious about how in your new position as CEO, how that changed your priorities into coaching, because you are not taking so much client right now.
Yeah, good question, Ronell. It didn't at all, right? It didn't change the way I coach my clients. It didn't change the type of coach I am or wanted to be. I just couldn't coach as many of those people, right? And that was one of the reasons why I had to let go of a lot of clients, was because I wasn't able to give them the exact service or the service I wanted to give them and that they were used to. So I just had to cut that number down. So I'm coaching significantly less people than I did a year ago, because I didn't want to change anything. So yeah, to answer your question, not at all. Yeah, nothing's changed. I still do 30-minute consultations with my clients on a daily basis. I still program design the way that we teach you guys to program design. I still do the same thing. I'm doing the same thing that you guys are doing.
But you are still working the same time in program design that before?
Yep.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, man. My program design days are different. Like I never used to program design on Sundays, but now I do. But yeah, same time, and yeah, everything's the same.
Hey, well, before you leave right now, I just want to say I follow you on Instagram, man. You have a great content. Good job. Keep it up.
Thanks, Kenny.
So we're like 11 minutes over, but maybe we go one more question. And there's one in the chat box from Ashkan. Ashkan, would you like to jump in and ask your question?
Good evening, Carl and Georgia. Thank you for having me.
Hey, how's it? Yeah, thanks for being on, man. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I see lots of people lost in their priorities and goals. I mean, as a coach, how can you help them to be aligned, to be understand what their priorities, to be set their goals? I mean, clients just jumping around and they're just moving, just losing their mind too many times. How can we help them to get understandable, to see their goals and not just following their shadows?
Yeah, good question, man. James calls that whole thing the dance. I remember him saying that probably a decade ago, where he's like, avoid the dance. And I'm like, what the hell's the dance? And it's like, it's that. It's like, you know, you're bouncing around, you're like putting some stuff in program design, and it's like not working, and your clients aren't happy, but they want to stay with you, and you're just kind of like bouncing back and forth. And the only way to fix it is through conversation, right? The only way to fix it is through conversation and to ask questions and to challenge, right? You know, and that's why the consultation is such a powerful thing for those clients that are malaligned. So, you know, we're talking about the things that you need to do to determine what their priorities are. You know, and once those priorities are identified, right, now it's like, that's level one. Now level two is like, okay, now what are your goals and how do I link these things together, right? So we just call that linking, right? Like, this is what you want to do. These are the things that we need to get there. This is what you said you're going to do. We agreed on it. And then we're going to move forward with that thing. Sorry, guys. There we go. Yeah, man. So it's through questions. It's through questions, and it's constant and consistent communication, because goals change, priorities change, purpose changes, less often, right? But all those things change. So it's not as easy as an initial consultation and then you're off to the races for the next 5 years. It's an initial consultation, and then it's constant check-ins just to make sure that we're good, right? And as a coach, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable in those uncomfortable conversations and situations where it's like, hey, this thing isn't working. We need to understand why this thing isn't working, right? And we have to be okay with not every client's a great fit for what we do, and not every client's a great fit for what we want to do in terms of our coaching style, the way that we do this thing, so on and so forth. So the faster you identify those things, I think the easier it's going to be for us.
Have you ever had a client you didn't want to work with it? I mean, you see,
yes,
it's not really fit in your program.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. The clients that I never liked working with, or I still don't like working with, are clients that are, trying to think of a good word for it, not sketchy, right? But they bounce around, right? It's like, oh, we talked about this thing on Monday, but the thing changed on Wednesday, and then, oh, let's set up a consultation because that thing that you just built out for me, now I'm going to change my mind and I want to do something else, right? It's like, I don't like to work with those people, right? You know, but some of us have to work with those people. And I was one of those coaches that had to work with those people because I had to make money doing this thing, right? So, you know, you do the best that you can to get aligned with that client, and you have to be okay with you have to be okay with there being a percentage of clients that you'll never be aligned with.
Got it. Thank you, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Guys, I think that's a great place to probably wrap it for today, because we are 15 minutes over.
Georgia?
What's up, Zeus?
Hey, nice to see you there. It's a good
Nice to see you too.
see you interacting with the guys for free and everything.
Yeah.
But I have a question for you or for Carl, either.
You go for it. Lucky last.
It's like, my purpose is, I have it in my hand, right? I always see, I put it on my door, like every time I go out, I see it, I try to read it, right? But it's not a thing. It's not a thing. It's more like a state of mind for me. It's like a feeling. And I have to read this for you guys, but it's more, I honor myself for the need to come
with sympathy. I affirm to receive with happiness, without judgment, in gratitude and compassion, without attachment or expectation to the things that can happen. Sharing my learnings in harmony with those that in curiosity inspire us to do or to get better possibilities, like rich state, right? Like a rich state. So I have it's very clear when people talk, when I tell people like, hey, what is purpose? What is this? This is my purpose. I can read it to you and I can feel it, right? But the thing is, some people, or what is your perspective about, like, to have something like crystal clear in like a thing, you know, like a number, or like my purpose is to live in a house with 3 kids. Yes, this is more like a thing. And this, what I have here, is not a thing to me. It's a feeling that allowed me to don't be in a moment like the dance Carol mentioned, right? Like now I notice this kind of dancing, entertaining things, and I know I'm not the better on programming. I'm not the better on many things, right? But I can feel the difference when I'm doing, when I'm having this moment surrounding with people, because we know we want to surround with people because we are coaches, right? Or we expect to be surrounded by people, even in a virtual way. But you feel, I can feel my purpose in a state here, right? Like here and here, like, do you feel this is a different thing of purpose? Or it can be a purpose even if it's not a thing?
George, I'll give my quick thoughts on that, and then if you have anything to add. Yeah, man, I think everything's a feeling, right? Everything's a feeling. Even things end up being a feeling. We do things to feel a certain way, right? We don't do things just to get those things done, unless we're like task oriented at work and we're like, check the boxes, right? So passion is also a feeling. Passion usually isn't a thing, right? So what we have to be okay with, and I'm going to continue to use that term for the rest of the week, is being okay with it, being good with it, right? We have to be okay or good with coming up with objectives that we feel are going to get us closer to our passion and or purpose. Okay. So, you know, going back to that impact thing, it's like, who identifies what impact is, right? We do, right? If I say I want to have impact, and I'm like, in my mind, in my brain, through conversations with people, through experiences, if I think impact is this, I'm going toward that. I might realize a couple of years down the road that impact is now this, so I'm going to now go toward that, right? But I have to be okay with my definition of impact, if that makes sense. But it's just a feeling. It's a feeling, right? So we have to reverse engineer. We'll talk about it in a couple of days, but we have to reverse engineer that feeling. We have to reverse engineer our purpose into actionable items, right? It's like that can either be an outcome or things that we're doing on a daily basis to get us to that outcome.
Yeah. So yeah, that to me is, I believe I'm more a feeling person. That's why I shape my purpose more like a feeling, right? But the other side is like all the little things you win on the way, the things, right? Or the number you always want to reach is there, but it's not your purpose. That's my feeling, right? But
let me give you, Zeus, let me give you a very specific definition that is like, or sorry, a specific example that is way different than what you're talking about, right? And like maybe that'll make it like make a little more sense what I'm trying to say. So at OPEX, we're like, we want to deliver great education that coaches find extremely beneficial. How do you measure that, right? It's like, you just get on a call and you're like, hey, did you find this thing beneficial? It's like, yeah, we could do that. Or we just use net promoter scores. We send surveys out to everyone that goes through our program. And a great net promoter score is a 70 or above, right? A good is 60 or above. And we average probably around 85 to 90 in net promoter scores. So we're like, okay, our courses are awesome, and the coaches that go through them really enjoy them because of this net promoter score. But enjoying something is a feeling, right? We just have to extrapolate it and try to like figure out how to put that thing on paper as a number, right? So I'm okay. I have to be okay with an NPS score being like good enough, right? It's not perfect by any means. It's not perfect, but it has to be good enough. That's what objectives have to be on a daily basis to get us closer to whatever our purpose is, right? It's like the same thing. We have to be okay with it. And sometimes, man, it's settling, right? It's settling in your brain. It's settling because you're just like, but how do I know? How do I know I'm having impact? How do I know? You won't, right? There's a lot of human beings in the world that you come in contact with, most likely. Maybe not right now. But usually there's a lot of human beings that we come in contact with without asking each one of those people and being 100% certain that they're telling us the truth. There's no way to understand if you're having impact, right?
Yeah. I was like always thinking like, is that a good purpose? Is that a real purpose? But it's there, and it let me feel really good, and it's a tool. The most important thing for me is like it's there to inspire me, but also it's a tool that goes together like always. So
yeah,
I just wanted, and thank you again for the format.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah. Right.
Georgia, we didn't charge for this.
You didn't charge.
I know, right? You want to drop your Venmo into the chat box, Carl?
My GoFundMe.
So guys, we'll be back tomorrow, same time, chatting about strengths and weaknesses. Make sure, like, set aside a little time today or tomorrow when you wake up, if it's late where you are. Get started on those purpose and priority sheets. Even if you don't have perfect answers for yourself right away, sit down and start thinking about it. And we look forward to seeing you on the call tomorrow.
Thanks, guys. I just noticed the master of habits is here, Steve Volke. What's up, Steve? Cool.
Hey, Carl.
Awesome. See you guys tomorrow.
See you guys tomorrow. Bye.